I have the first edition of Ms. Magazine had Wonder Woman on the cover. And when Gloria Steinem was here, I had her sign my copy. I have a copy of it, and she signed it to me, and I had it framed. And I'm not going to hang it on the wall until I'm hanging it in the mayor's office. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I love that. Wonder Woman. Where do you stand with the outgoing mayor of Minneapolis, R.T. Ryback? I know you've been politically allied with him, but he hasn't given you his blessing or imprimatur, has he?
RT has not, Mayor Ryback has not made an endorsement in the race. He and I have been very good friends and allies over time, and we've worked on a number of things together. He said some very kind things about me and some others in this race, which I appreciate.
Well, he said some pretty sharp and critical things about your primary opponent. Did you feel that was fair or a little bit over the top? He used some Mayor Ryback did use some very sharp words. I think stupid was among them in talking about Andrew's education policy. Would you agree with that characterization of Andrew's education policies, stupid?
Mark, Andrew and I differ in terms of where we see education. He has said different things at different times about his education beliefs, and so I know that I have been consistent in what I've said about education. A couple pieces. I mean, on the one hand, there are things that the city does that has a direct impact on the opportunity gaps kids face. And that's where my Cradle to K platform comes in, looking at prenatal and early childhood work. And that's where housing comes in as well. Kids, when you control for poverty, kids who are stably housed do much better than kids who aren't. Right now, all the conversations are about what adults are afraid of. And the conversation needs to be about what kids need. So we need a child-centered conversation, not an adult-centered, debate. If it's a child-centered conversation, then we all come together and we say, how do we make that happen? How do we make that happen? But I do know that the Minneapolis Public Schools has 80 different languages in it. It has, a higher proportion of students in special ed than other schools have. A lot more kids coming to school from unstable housing situations, all which make it harder to teach a kid. The idea of Cradle to K is that the first opportunity gap a child faces is before they're born until they're about 2 or 3 years old, even before they get to early childhood education. Because brain formation happens prenatally and in that first year of life. And so if kids get that healthy start that they need, they get what they need for really good and proper brain functioning, they're going to start their early education even better than they would have otherwise. Well, I have been working in other communities in the city since before I was on the city council. One of the things that I was doing in my volunteer time before I was on the council was organizing folks in Southwest Minneapolis to be really effective and true allies to North Minneapolis, for example, with the dinner network that I helped start.
What is the dinner network? I'm not familiar with it.
It was a program that I was working on before I ran for city council that created opportunities for folks in Southwest Minneapolis and folks in North Minneapolis to come together and have dinner in one another's homes. The idea being when you break bread with somebody, it's much easier to know that they are your community and that they are your neighbor. We have the biggest gulf between white people and people of color on education, income, housing, health, and geography of any city in the country. And for me, that's what I'm running on. That's one of the primary reasons I'm running for mayor.
It is an emergency.
It's the most urgent issue of our time. And I talk a lot about education, but I talk about employment and health and housing, that all of these gaps are the biggest challenge we face as a city. They will keep us from our brightest future. So growing Minneapolis and taking on our biggest challenge, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
You say that so calmly. You say it so reasonably. Do you ever get mad about it?
Listen, if you're asking if these are personal issues for me, my husband is African American. When I married him, I became grandmother to 4. 2 of them are African American boys in the Minneapolis Public Schools. Yes, this is personal to me. It's absolutely personal to me. Am I angry about it? Of course I'm angry about it. It diminishes our entire community. But of course what needs to happen moving forward is we have to have leadership who can bring people to the table, make things happen, and get things done. So what does Betsy Hodges look like when she's angry? She looks very intently focused on doing her job and getting the results needed to make sure that things change.
These problems have been discussed ad nauseum for decades. Are they getting any better or are they getting worse?
One of the philosophies I operate under is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So if we're going to do something, we've got to start from where we're at, and we have to go from here.
Is the political leadership of the city divorced from the neediest areas of the city, including North Minneapolis, the sense that of alienation, frustration, cynicism? Here come the candidates for mayor. It must be every fourth year, and they're saying the same old, but they're not really listening.
I can speak for myself, and I have spent a lot of time on the north side before I was on the council, while I've been on the council, and as I've been campaigning. That making sure the north side is successful is important to me. And the issues that the north side face are at the center of my campaign. It's the center of the reason I choose to be mayor. And so moving forward, what happens on the north side is going to be a crucial indicator of how we're doing as a city as a whole. Housing, transit, job creation, education, public safety, police accountability, all of those. I have been leading the city of Minneapolis for 8 years. I have been chair of the budget committee for the last 4, getting us through the recession better than almost any other city in the country. $1.2 billion budget, 5,000 employees. I know how to lead the city of Minneapolis, and I have taken on many tough fights. I was honored in the Star Tribune when they endorsed me, that they said, taking on special interests has never bothered Hodges, and taking on the tough fight has never bothered me. They almost patted me on the head when I decided to take on reforming those closed pension funds. Those special interests who are going to be mad at me, they are mad at me. They are supporting Mark Andrew. But the answer to your question is, am I tough enough to be mayor? Yes. Yes, I am.
Well, let's talk about those special interests then that are supporting Mark Andrew. Who are they? Why are they supporting him?
Well, in this particular pension fight, Brian Rice in particular was sort of leading the charge against what the city wanted to do.
He's an attorney who represents union interests.
He's a lobbyist. He's an attorney and he's a lobbyist, and he was representing these 2 closed pension funds and fought us tooth and nail. And but we got the right thing.
He is not contributing to your campaign.
He is not contributing to my campaign. I was the first Democrat to represent Ward 13 in 12 years. There have been 4 election cycles without a Democrat elected into my seat when I won in 2005.
Why do you think you won? Because
I was the best candidate, and I put together an incredible grassroots campaign. That being said, of course, we're primarily Democrats here in the city of Minneapolis. There's no getting around it.
you guys fought it out in June at the city convention, and you went until into the evening when you and your candidates left.
We stopped preventing our supporters from leaving. Yeah. I mean, there are some issue differences between us. Certainly, the HERC has been one over time. Streetcars is another. Education is another.
HERC for?
The garbage burner. I do know that he and I differ on a number of things, including how you grow a city. I know that he's supportive of the convention center hotel, for example, doing a corporate subsidy for that. He's made it clear that he's willing to pull the trigger on big development projects. I'm endorsed by the African American Caucus and the Latino Caucus and Sierra Club, Clean Water Action, number of great endorsements that I think have indicated to people who I am and where I'm coming from.
Or you're going to vote for Andrew? Fine, but vote for me second because?
Vote for me second because I have a big vision for the city of Minneapolis that's about growing it, but also taking on our biggest challenge. And because I have 8 years of experience leading the city of Minneapolis, and because I'm, a great candidate.
And Cam Winton, you say to his supporters, I know that you're going to vote for Cam because he's an independent business person without being tainted by political experience in office. And he says he's going to put taxes and the taxpayers first. But vote for Betsy Hodges second because?
I have a big vision for the city of Minneapolis that's about building and growing based on the common ground. And
there's an echo. I think there's an echo in here.
What I do, the way that I've approached campaigning is I say the same thing to everybody, everywhere that I go. I say, this is who I am, this is the vision that I have for the future of the city, this is the experience I have. Here's what I offer. Let's talk more specifically about what people's specific issues are, but then I know that people have signed on to the vision that we share. It means I'm responsible to that vision when I get to City Hall. I'm not beholden to special interests. I believe that I would have run, but I do believe ranked choice voting gives me an advantage in this race because the way that I am and the way that I campaign is I want to make sure we're in all parts of the city, touching all parts of the city, leaving no vote and no voter unturned. And in a ranked choice voting environment, there's an advantage in that because you can't leave any part of the city or any vote unturned. Because if you don't get the first choice, you need to get the second choice. So we have the biggest grassroots operation in this whole election. I guarantee you that. We've had over 3,500 hours of conversation with voters.
Do you feel that the city decision-making around the Viking Stadium project is a model that should be emulated in any way in difficult decisions that may lay ahead? Specifically in the parts where interest meeting not in full public view, discussions and decisions being made not in public view, legislation being crafted not in public view, and then being brought to the city council for very quick decisions that I don't think were fully aired. I know you voted against the stadium.
I was going to say.
But analyze for me what was wrong with that process?
Well, I mean, for me, it was a philosophical issue about funding for sports facilities in general. I don't think the state part of the bill, the state's part of the funding in that bill was strong, and I think that's been borne out. I think we should have done the referendum. But you know what? Once it became clear it was happening, I said this has to happen really well for people, and I was the only opponent on the implementation committee.
All the wheels are coming off. There's all sorts of problems. There's all sorts of red flags and warning signals. It continues to roll ahead, and some people are concerned this is going to be a financial disaster for the city.
I aired concerns at the time of the vote, and I have said them subsequent to that, my fear is that at some point down the road, they're going to come knocking on the city's door again and ask for more money, and my answer will be no.
So you have to prevent a bad deal from becoming incredibly bad deal.
I have to protect the interests of the city of Minneapolis is what I'm going to have to do. I mean, right now, part of what needs to happen is we need to develop and grow downtown East Minneapolis, regardless. I mean, I think everybody knows who voted for it. I think everybody knows who championed it. I don't think there's any mystery about that. But naming those names now will not help us get a developed downtown East, the best jobs at the stadium ongoing possible. That's what my eyes are focused on right now.
Are you going to keep the chief? Does she have a job under your administration?
I have expressed a lot of faith in Chief Hartel. I think that she is, she is a cop from the tip of her boots to the tips of her hair, but she has also really got a deep understanding of what it's going to take to make sure we have a police department that is good with the community, that we are a high touch as well as high tech police department, get people out of the cars, and that she understands that there's a culture inside the department that needs transforming.
Do you have any qualms about resources of policing being spent on so much of the foreclosure business of the banks?
And I have said the city's not in the business of providing a private security force for banks. I mean, those are situations that need to be worked out. I am so glad the Homeowners Bill of Rights passed so that you can no longer do dual tracking. You can't be working with somebody to, come up with a new plan for their mortgage while at the same time pursuing eviction. I think that, following that law, making sure it's followed is important, but once that law is followed, a lot of that friction is going to be reduced because there will be far more options for people to be working with the banks to do something about. I think we need to be making sure that the banks are working with homeowners moving forward for fair and good outcomes. It's not just the chief's efforts to build better relations, she's structuring the department to make that real so that officers are getting out of the cars, they're talking to people, they're building those relationships in the community. And I've also put forward, I found the dollars in 2013 and then we'll find them into 2014 for lapel cameras. For body cameras because that has reduced.
How do you get the police to wear them if they don't want to, if the union doesn't agree or buy into them?
Actually, what they find in other cities is that the unions do tend to support them because they exonerate officers in situations. They actually get support from a whole host of people because it gives accurate information on the table, and accurate information is an advantage for everybody.
They've been dragging their feet here at this point.
I met with Chief Harteau, I met with Councilmember Samuels, the three of us met together. The chief was eager to do that, and I know that she's on board. She's made herself the
Right.
point person on the project.
Something you'd like to say other than vote Betsy Hodges?
I am the best choice for mayor of Minneapolis. Please vote for me #1 on November 5th.
Okay.